Can I introduce you to a couple ladies on my team who've helped make this happen? That's Janice in the back and Mary Beth. Yay! Yes. We would not be here, guys. I promise you. They're the ones responsible. And it fits perfect for our presentation about vegetables. Mary Beth came up with the idea, if we're going to do vegetables, I want to create a farm market stand. So that's where the vegetable pictures came in. And I love as soon as you all came in, you're like, I got to get a picture of that. Yeah. Veggies are gorgeous naturally by themselves. And as Dr. Wendy said in her presentation, which I loved, you know, the ingredient statement on fresh vegetables, pretty simple. Yeah. Carrots is carrots, broccoli is broccoli, Brussels sprouts are Brussels sprouts, and not a lot of added to it. But we're going to give you and show some techniques for ways to get flavor, or techniques in your actual cooking that develop flavor before you even add the herbs and spices. You had one of them at lunch with the squash ribbon noodles. You guys remember that? What did you think of that? And I'm not looking because we made the dish, but just something new, different?
Yeah, it's a different way of using, you know, this becomes your lettuce effectively, but it also builds a beautiful plate, and it's another way. I mean, we are encouraged to eat more fruits and veggies, and we are encouraged to find creative ways to do it. But I think that in how we talk about it, it is, you know, how you present it. When we eat food, you eat with your eyes first. You really eat with your eyes first. And then you catch the aroma, which is 70 to 80% of what you're then going to land in your mouth and discern as temperature, texture, or flavor. Absolutely. And so, you know, the presentation, let alone that it is a vegetable, and what you're going to put on it,
could go with it. And really super simple, guys. I mean, literally a peeler. This is how we got those wonderful noodles. I mean, you're just running along the side of the vegetable, and you're just getting those nice thin noodles that work up with there. Dr. Wendy said, she goes, I wouldn't use a peeler. I'd use a mandolin. How many of you guys have a mandolin at home? Okay, not so much in this group.
Yeah, the last group, one, it was like 80%.
They were like, oh yeah, we got the mandolin.
You start with the peeler, and then you say, and I don't have a fancy mandolin. You know, they have the really fancy mandolins that are really, I just have a little plastic, you know, mandolin that's just really easy. But because I do things like this a lot, there are certain times when you go, this is going to be my new go-to tool. And
that's right, that you use all the time.
I'm not a total tool junkie, but I'll try some new ones out once in a while.
I get that one.
My finger's too much for the mandolin.
Oh yeah, they are sharp. You gotta be careful.
I've been tempted to buy one of those like shark gloves, you know, or the knife gloves, you know, just so there's no chance.
Well, what we wanted to show, again, using vegetables as your lettuce, of course, one of the big components of a salad is dressing. So we wanted to show you some different unique vinaigrettes using not only traditional vinegars that we can all think of. There's the champagne, there's the balsamic, there's the white wine. We actually have a couple unique ones here. Janice brought this in from her personal collection, blackberry vinegar. So a typical vinaigrette is usually 2 or 3 to 1, meaning olive oil to whatever your other flavoring is. So in this case, we had the vinegar to the olive oil, but you could also use vegetable juices or fruit juices. And actually, one of the ones on our recipes that we have on our website for a pear and field green salad is a pomegranate vinaigrette, and it's actually using pomegranate juice. What I love about that, nice and colorful. So the vinaigrette, again, very simple to make right in the house. I'm going to put a little bit of that pomegranate juice, a little bit of olive oil. I am going to put in salt, and you can see I probably have about 1/8 of a teaspoon in there.
You know, the salt in the American diet, the salt that we add at home only accounts for about 10% of the salt that is actually in our food. You know, so when it comes to sodium and salt, 80% actually is from packaged processed foods and restaurant meals. So when you're at home, you know, I'm not an advocate of shaking it wildly, but you know, when salt serves a very important culinary purpose also, and a little bit goes a long way.
Goes a long way. We're also going to put in a little bit of the ground ginger that we have from McCormick and cinnamon. And you'll see how simple it is to do. You don't need any fancy tools. We were talking about gadgets, but just simple whisk right in a bowl, and you can see how quickly that comes together. It's got great flavor here. You can really smell that ginger and that and the cinnamon in there. But look at that color. I mean, just got a really unique one.
You can play with the ratios on a vinaigrette. You know, you may get into a heavy debate with a legit certified chef to tell you that a vinaigrette is actually this part oil to this part acid, period. But, you know, you can just put before it the word spa, and you can get away with it. So you can play with what I call matters of dilution, where you can add fruit juices, or you can add different kind of lower calorie but high flavor items like the vegetable stocks, and you can play with that a little bit and see how it comes together.
Yep.
Another little tip that, you know, this is easy. I mean, I love when chefs show things
quick
where you're like, literally, I have those ingredients already. But sometimes it's still a leap, you know, to say, you know, I don't make my own dressing yet. You know, as easy as that is. And if you have bottled dressings that you have at home that you like the ingredients, so I hope that you're still looking for good ingredients if you're buying bottled dressings. There's nothing that should stop you from using herbs and spices into it. You can actually take a simple store-bought dressing and add a herb or spice and change the texture of it a little bit, change the flavor. You can even add juices to a store-bought salad dressing, and it will extend and dilute the calories a little bit and add a little different color or texture depending on what you're working with, especially with the simple Italians and simple vinaigrettes that you might buy.
That's a great example. So, good way to show how to use vegetables as your lettuce. Nice way to change out your meals during the week. I talked about developing flavor. One of the ways to develop great flavors, especially with vegetables, is to roast or grill them. Before you even add an herb or a spice or an oil or anything else to it, just the simple fact of the technique of roasting adds flavor, adds texture. It's also kind of primal because, you know, way back in the day before electricity when we actually had to fire roast our foods, that's kind of how we ate. Wanted to show some great colors again too, these natural vegetables. So that's beets. That's just plain beets that we roasted in a 350-degree oven about 45 minutes. Didn't do any oil, didn't do anything on them, just put them on a baking pan and roasted them, peeled them, and then cut them through. What's great about beets is they take very well to any herb and spice. So if you want to make it more savory, a little bit of black pepper. If you want to make it more sweet, a little bit of cinnamon and brown sugar. Same thing here with the Brussels sprouts. Hated these as a kid, but love them now. These we did roast with a little bit of balsamic vinegar, a little bit of olive oil, and some black pepper and a little touch of brown sugar. And you can see wonderful. I love the mini ones.
Have any of you heard of the concept of nutritional synergy? You probably have as a group, maybe, or synergy between nutrients. This is a good example where, you know, using olive oil with carotenoid-rich foods. So those are a lot of the greens and the oranges that are full of carotenoids, and that's a big class, actually. It includes beta-carotene and alpha-carotene and lutein and all zeaxanthin and lycopene, and there's a whole list of them. But when you add a healthy oil like olive oil, you know, the hallmark of the Mediterranean diet, which is rich in monounsaturated fats, it actually enhances the absorption in the body of the carotenoids. So it actually, they do work together. And so when we look back to whether it's the primal way or a traditional diet, it's kind of like modern science shows what Mother Nature knows. I do a lot of scientific presentations, and I just love when, and it literally came out of my mouth one day, when modern science shows what Mother Nature knows. We've been doing it like this. It works really well. Our palate says it's good for us, and wow, our body actually likes it that way too.
So, you know, I love that tagline. Say it one more time.
Modern science shows what Mother Nature knows.
Wow, that's a classic right there. Well, as Dr. Wendy mentioned, the Mediterranean. So the next couple dishes I'm going to show you, we use a little bit of our black pepper, a little bit of rosemary, and just a little bit of garlic. So when I mentioned those three herbs and spices to you, tomatoes kind of sounds like, again, a natural fit, right? So same thing exactly here. Took some Roma tomatoes, cut them in half, tossed them in a little bit of the herbs, roasted them right in the oven, and they came up that wonderful color. Now, do you mind, I'm going to pass those around to you, Gina. I want to show, when we talk about roasting, we had some folks from the last group that say, oh, I did something like that, but I thought I burned it. No, no, no. Roasting, there should be some color. There should be some texture on that. You want to develop that flavor, that crust. What you're doing is caramelizing the sugars that are in the vegetables, and that's a good thing because, again, that's flavor. Anything you add to it's just going to make it taste much better. But, yeah, go ahead and pass those through so everybody can take a look. That's a wonderful roast veggie. Yes?
We were talking on the bus and over here about caramelizing vegetables.
Yes.
And how, you know, when you read a recipe, it just says until it starts to brown. But I actually, like my brother's a chef, and he was just telling me I wasn't doing it long enough.
Yeah. So now you're seeing it.
Right flavor. So, like, about how long on average do you really want to roast? I mean, I'm sure it's different by vegetable, but like, it seems to take longer than you think.
We're going to continue talking. I think I'll show you some good examples that'll help with that because each veggie kind of has its own time limit. You know, some go faster than others, but I wanted you to see that's not burnt. That's actually roasted. That's developing flavor.
The original chemist is actually the cook. Like food science and what we do with food, that's the ultimate in chemistry, really, because caramelization is actually a reaction that happens between compounds in food. And so really there's something so, it's back to primal, or something so original about you know, how we practice science through how we prepare our foods.
Yep. It's a great example, Wendy. Thank you so much. So again, you heard me talk about the roasting and grilling of vegetables. So again, very simple platter of vegetables. Don't they look wonderful? I mean, we've got asparagus, carrots, mushrooms, red and yellow bell peppers, white and red onions, a little bit of eggplant. I mean,
it's like a virtual trip to the Mediterranean.
It really is. You know, hello. It's, you know, all the stuff starting to come together. Now with these, all I did was a little bit of olive oil. We'll talk about that in just a second. But again, using those same kind of Mediterranean herbs just to give them flavor. Some I did on the grill, some I did in the oven, and you can see the various degrees of roast or doneness to them. I personally like a little bit more in my veggies, especially grilled veggies, and they're not just for summertime. You know, if you can have a grill pan in the kitchen, you could make those during the winter and spring for those of you that can't grill outside, but simple, right? Nothing, nothing too hard and complex here, but full of flavor. What's great about roasting vegetables, I could serve them just like this. But think about, I could also make other dishes with that. If I wanted to make a great roasted carrot soup, I would then puree the carrots. If I wanted to make a nice salsa, the onions and the tomatoes that we have here, I could chop up kind of roughly and have a great roasted tomato salsa.
This is a great actually health strategy, you know, planning strategy. It's like a cook once, eat twice, not in the same format.
Yeah,
it's not,
no.
It's much
great
better
point.
than leftovers. It's repurposing. You know, it's cook once and have a method.
Have a method to go for.
And it's a lot of time saving. And as you start meal planning, which I know is a daunting task for so many of us, as you start doing it, if you think of it that way instead of like leftovers, like no one even likes the sound of that, you know?
Right. Who was the leftover?
Leftover.
Yeah.
It's leftover. It wasn't picked the first time.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. So exactly.
But you're
Second
making,
choice.
you know, you're making something that is inherently has a purpose that you're going to use it for again, and yet it can grace your table then twice.
It's wonderful. I love doing vegetables. Another great thing about them, this is kind of more savory we've been talking about, the Mediterranean flavors with the garlic, with the oregano, the thyme, the basil. But veggies also take well to kind of more sweet spices. This is some butternut squash. You can see the whole squash here on the end of the table. This I took a little of cinnamon, a little bit of brown sugar, and a little bit of nutmeg. Again, lightly tossed them together with those herbs, baked them in the oven. Yes, you had a quick question.
Oh, boy, no, just finish what you were saying.
Okay, yep, baked in the oven.
She's coming along for the trip. She's like, I'm there,
As a matter of fact, Nikki, I'm going to let you take a look at these. Bake these right in the oven, but when you smell this platter, it smells like a platter of cinnamon cookies, and it's veggies.
You know, squash, butternut squash, the pumpkin, the various squash. They're a little bit of, they're a little challenging to get into. And so one of the things I found is some of the produce departments are really good about if you bring it back and you're a little bit patient, they'll open them for you. Or increasingly you find you can buy the cubes if you don't want to go through that business either. But I shared it with the last group, and I'm going to just share it again. One day I was in there because I also like them as table ornaments. You know, I mean, they really serve a purpose, and then they serve a second purpose. One day I was in the store, and I was trying to find a squash that balanced perfectly. So I'm down there on the floor, and I'm putting it down and balancing. And a woman came up, all excited. She's like, "Oh my gosh, that's how you discover if they're ripe?" And I said, "I'm just decorating the table at the moment."
But you obviously look like you knew what you were doing. So she said, "Was I not kidding? Did that not smell like a platter of cinnamon cookies or
There's
sugar
some of the
cookies?"
best bang for the buck too here, as far as your carotenoids. The orange color is like looking at you.
Yeah.
It's calling nutrition, and it's loaded with fiber and low in calories. And this is a good. We were talking a little bit about substituting this in recipes sometimes in unexpected places. You may have heard of applesauce as a fat replacer, but actually pumpkin and squash is a really awesome fat replacer or a partial fat replacer in some baked goods and other kinds of things. Soups, of course.
So I'm from Texas. We love steak. We love our meat. But any of these grilled vegetables, especially grilled mushrooms or eggplant, kind of have that steak feel. That's something you can have during the week. With the squash, what I love here, you can have it just like we did here, right? Cut up, roasted. This would make a great side dish. But imagine if you pureed that a little bit with a little bit of maybe some vegetable or chicken stock, you could have a wonderful soup. If you wanted to add a little bit of coconut milk, make a nice creamy soup that you could do in, but just a very versatile vegetable to work with. So great things on grilling and roasting, right? More color. More color is what you're going to put in. You're going to say, I'm not going to be scared about that anymore.
What did you say was on the squash again?
So that one, a little bit of cinnamon, nutmeg, and what did I say? Brown sugar. Yep. I had to think for a second. You threw me off there. Our last piece is, okay, we've showed roasting and vegetables, we showed how to use them like a lettuce. Well, what about ways to get vegetables in your everyday meals? We've got one of our recipes that's on our website where we have whole wheat pasta with a little bit of roasted tomatoes, and you can see the zucchini and yellow squash. Great way to have that maybe in place of the ground beef that you normally would have, or chicken or turkey. And without really saying, oh, you know, this is a way to get the family to eat more veggies. No, that's just a great sauce.
It's like an upgrade. You know, I always look at, like, keep what you have and maybe notch it up. Or keep what you have and still serve it sometimes, but are there ways to notch it up? You know, I don't really think of it as sneaky. We were talking about the sneaky model,
the sneaky chef.
You know, the sneaky chef, or trying to sneak in vegetables. In the spa world, I just call that spa nutrition, or spa food, or spa cuisine, because in the spa world, we serve salads and we serve soups at every meal. You know, but every opportunity that we have to enhance the flavor, nutrition, texture, or quality with vegetables or fruits, we do it. I mean, we just do that by practice. That's not sneaky, that's a method.
Right.
And it's something we've embraced for forever.
Yeah, since you've been doing that.
Yeah, since we've been doing
One last thing before we have to cut our time short, we do have a juicer on the table. Vegetables are a great way to use not only in juice that you drink or in smoothies, but think about if I pureed a bunch of, or juiced a bunch of carrots and used that liquid to cook rice. I'd have not only a very colorful, flavorful rice, you could use it to poach vegetables, do your pasta, cook fish. You can also take these juices, reduce them down, and have a nice sauce. So instead of a traditional cream-based sauce, great way to do that as well.
Create a marinade base.
Create a marinade, yep. Awesome things
Add
to
it
do.
back to your salad dressing.
Add it back,
I mean,
yeah. So see, it all kind of comes together.
This is a multitasker, these veggies.
Anti-veggie kids, then you can get it, put it in their smoothie.
Yes, you can, Nikki.
Right. You can, yeah, and you can. It kind of blends into the sweetness. You know, I think that some people, they try to go to the green drink or something.
Yep.
You know, you can go with your traditional fruit-based smoothie and throw in a handful of spinach. You're not going to be any the worse for the wear, or a sweet dish, a sweet kind tending vegetable
to get through there.
To get it in there as well.
So you guys have been great. We'll see you at the dessert thing. Thank
All
you
right,
so much,
onward,
guys.
forward.
Onward, yep. You have one more to go.
It was great to be with you, and thanks for coming.